I'm Laura, and I will be refuting Armando's claim on why climate change is a worldwide issue that is caused by man. His three supporting claims were how power plants have no limit to the CO2 pollution that they produce, how power plants and industrial facilities are the main contributors to much of the CO2 pollution, and about CO2 emissions from the Industrial Revolution up until now. His first claim is that power plants have no limit to the amount of CO2 pollution that they produce. It's true that a chunk of CO2 is emitted due to the usage of power plants, but even if power plants and other man-made contributors continue to release CO2, there's still a sort of offset to this, and that offset being the fact that plants absorb much of the CO2 that is in the atmosphere as they grow, and they tend to store it away throughout their life. And it's not only plants that can do this. Soils also have the ability to do this, and they also store it away depending on the climate and all that. And as is stated in the United States Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA for short, in the United States, overall since 1990, land use change, and forestry activities have resulted in more removal of CO2 from the atmosphere than emissions. Because of this, the U.S. is considered more of a net sink rather than a source of CO2. His second claim was how power plants and industrial facilities are the main contributors to CO2 pollution. And a large part of CO2 emissions come from multiple different factors other than just power plants and industry. These include agriculture, forestry, and other types of land use. They also tend to emerge from the burning of fossil fuels for electricity, heat, and transportation. And in 2015, 21% of CO2 emissions actually came from industry, but compare that to the 29 and 27% that came from the use of electricity and transportation. But even so, CO2 emissions, you have to keep in mind that they tend to fluctuate. They can rise and fall from year to year depending on multiple factors such as the price of fuel, changes in the economy, among other things. And for example, in 2015, greenhouse gases actually decreased compared to the prior year. And as stated in the EPA's report, this decrease was largely driven by a decrease in emissions from fossil fuel combustion, which was a result of multiple factors, including substitution from coal to natural gas consumption in the electric power sector, warmer winter conditions that reduced demand for heating fuel in the residential and commercial sectors, and a slight decrease in electricity demand. And his last claim was about CO2 emissions from the Industrial Revolution up until now. So the claim itself was kind of worded a little roughly, but I think what he was trying to explain was how CO2 levels have been continuing to increase the ppm count in the atmosphere, and how they could potentially further increase in the near future. And the rise of greenhouse gases and CO2 emissions actually won't have much of an impact on climate change, though. And the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, were actually the ones that were issuing reports stating that greenhouse gases may be the ones causing dangerous changes in the climate. However, the Non-Governmental International Panel on Climate Change, or the NIPCC, that is actually composed of independent scientists, have also been examining the rising CO2 levels on Earth's biosphere, as well as evaluating forecasts of future climate effects. And as it's stated in the article, the environment from Gale opposing viewpoints and context, most notably its authors, which is referring to the NIPCC authors, say that IPCC has exaggerated the amount of warming likely to occur if the concentration of atmospheric CO2 were to double on such a warming, and such warming as occurs is likely to be modest and cause no net harm to the global environment or to human well-being. So, in conclusion, I don't think the advocate has successfully proven that climate change is an issue that is caused by man due to the emission of harmful CO2 gases. And because again, the offset is that plants and soils tend to absorb more CO2 that is actually emitted, as well as any CO2 levels that occur are actually, it's always fluctuating too. So, and rising CO2 levels again won't have much of an impact on climate change, according to the NIPCC scientists.
Okay, well, it's easy to follow the structure. You laid out what the advocate's claims were, and you're responding to each of those individual points. On the first point, you do have an argument that says that there are things that offset the CO2. You mentioned plants and soil and all those sorts of things, but I didn't hear any evidence being cited on those particulars. The EPA evidence, though, that you do cite suggests that there has been a trade-off, at least that the United States has had some impact on this. And so I think that that information is pretty useful and ought to be more prominently emphasized, especially the explanation that goes along with it. When you get to the second point, I think that you basically are suggesting that there are multiple factors that contribute to this. So this is a causality argument, and I think that that's a pretty reasonable argument to make. The notion that fossil fuels account for whatever it is, I mean, you had a whole bunch of percentages in the 20s. I think it was 29% that was from the energy sector. Well, I'm not sure that that contradicts what the advocate's claim is, but it does maybe put it into a bit of a context and suggest that CO2 is CO2 regardless of where it comes from, and only a third of it is coming from power plants at best. I do think that there's also a little bit of an argument here that suggests that this is variable, and you had a nice piece of information that says there's actually been a decline in greenhouse gases because of some of the changes that we've made. We use less fossil fuels, we're using natural gas, there have been lower demands because winters have been warmer, you know, that kind of thing. Those are okay arguments to make. I'm not sure that it denies the relationship of power plants to the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, but it does seem to diminish it in terms of significance a little bit. I don't know that the advocate quantified it particularly in a way that makes it seem more dangerous either. So I think there needs to be a little bit more contrast on that argument. The third point is an interesting one because basically you start off by identifying what the IPCC says, and then you present a counter-organization that reaches a different conclusion, suggests that we're actually seeing different results, and that the IPCC is prone to exaggeration and mislabeling of their information. I think you could probably have a stronger argument about that, but the notion that there have been changes because of the way people produce our power or because of variations in the weather, that undermines the general process by which the IPCC gathers their information. I think there could be a more extensive argument on that. There's some good presses there. when you get to the summary, you just kind of need to get to the point a little bit more. You're trying to summarize everything, and it needs to come down to, look, there are plenty of offsets that control for the CO2. Power plants are a minimal contributor to this. I can't deny that they contributed to it, but they're not that important. And the truth of the matter is that the claims are mostly exaggerated. There's good evidence to suggest that they're not having an impact. There you go. That's basically what your argument is. Look up and summarize it quickly instead of kind of going, you're kind of repeating the whole argument again, and just give us the paraphrase version of it. All right, thank you.